My husband gouged out my eyes and forced me to miscarry for his mistress, so I used others to kill him and made him pay in blood. When I was 10, to keep me from starving. Shin Yun-song had a finger bitten off by a wild dog, fighting to get a blood-stained steamed bun and coaxing me to eat it. When I was 18, watching me near death from illness, he carried me in his arms and knelt his way into Hong Kong's elite circles, nearly losing an eye to become Master Shin. After we married, every year he would spend 2 days in the temple, kneeling for 3,000 steps for me, offering a long life lamp, praying only for my longevity. But this time, he was gone for 7 days. Fearing he had fallen victim to enemies, I led nearly 100 men, armed with guns, rushing through the night to save him. Kicking the door open, I saw him holding a young girl's slender waist, helping her dress. The meditation room, where he prayed for my longevity, was filled with traces of their encounter. Bang! I shot and shattered the defiled long-life lamp and spoke tremblingly. Divorce or widowhood? You choose one. The thick sandalwood incense in the room couldn't cover the scent of their lovemaking. The timid young girl's exposed skin was covered in red marks, dazzling and unbearable. Seeing me move, the nearly 100 brothers immediately raised their guns. They were personally trained by Shin Yun-song and given to me, their sole mission in life being to protect me. Unexpectedly, the first person they had to deal with was him. Shin Yun-song raised an eyebrow, helped the young girl finish dressing as if no one else was there, and patted her head. Ching, I need to go handle something first. You be good. The young girl blinked her sparkling eyes and nodded. Their interaction was just like our beginning. Shin Yun-song and I were once the lowest of orphans and beggars in Hong Kong, trampled by everyone. To keep the sickly me alive, every time he fought for food, he would place me in a safe corner, his eyes curved in a smile as he patted my head. Moo, I need to go handle something first. You be good. Now. He raised his hand, disarmed me of my gun, and wiped up the shattered pieces of the long-life lamp I had broken. His expression was calm, as if nothing had happened, as if we were still the enviably loving couple. Moo, your body has just recovered, only lacking this. I shook off the man's hand and slapped him across the face. Keep away. It's filthy. His face tilted slightly to the side, his brow twitching slightly. I hadn't held back. His face instantly swelled red. The young girl beside him cried and rushed over, fearless, standing in front of him. What right do you have to hit someone? Apologize to me. The girl before me was innocent, young, brave, and fearless. Even with a gun pressed to her head, she didn't blink. Shin Yun-song worked his jaw and laughed, a hint of nostalgia in his eyes. Grabbing the back of her collar, he shielded her behind him. See that, Moo? I can't help but look after her. She's too similar. I understood his unspoken words. Too similar. Too similar to me in my youth. Reckless, charging ahead, like a mad dog. Anyone who hurt Shin Yun-song, I would bite a piece of flesh from. My love was fervent and unrestrained. My eyes instantly turned red. There is no greater torment than this. Over a decade of sharing life and death, now just a youthful resemblance, and his loyal mountain immediately crumbled. He patiently wiped his hands clean, carefully gathered the broken pieces of the long-life lamp, raised his eyebrow and smiled. Moo, adding this one makes 1,000 lamps. Then you'll be able to. How I am from now on has nothing to do with you. No divorce. You and her die together. I coldly interrupted him, raised my hand, and drew a subordinate's revolver. The bullet precisely hit 1 centimeter from the girl's foot. The one who was brave and fearless just moments ago instantly turned pale, gripping the man's sleeve. Brother Yun-song, save me. The man raised his hand, twisted, and pressed down on my arm. The lingering fear in his eyes was so familiar it made me want to laugh. The last time I saw it was in the winter when I was 18. He knelt, holding me, who had no medicine to cure my illness, crying and begging outside the pharmacy door. Shin Yun-song used force. I grunted softly. The man suddenly released his grip. My wrist and arm were already red. Moo, I won't let her get in your way, but you need to apply the medicine first. He frowned, asked the temple for ointment, warmed it in his palm, and was about to apply it to my wrist, his movements and natural. Over the years, taking care of me had become a habit etched into his bones. Looking at the young girl glaring hatefully at me from behind him, I suddenly felt it was meaningless. The living cannot compete with the dead. I can no longer be young. Shin Yun-song and I were destined to end today. Pulling my hand away, I raised my gun and shattered all the long life lamps in the temple. Under his gloomy expression, I threw down a sentence. Go down the mountain. We'll go through with the divorce immediately. At the Shin residence, I waited with the divorce agreement for half a month. Shin Yun-song never showed up. It wasn't that he didn't want the divorce. It was that the girl was pregnant. In the photo she sent to stake her claim, the man was carefully leaning over her belly listening for fetal movement. The two looked like a happy young couple welcoming new life. I glanced at it and casually threw the photo to my subordinate. Find out her location and hang her at the port. Release her only when Shin Yun-song signs the papers. For the past half-month, her information had been tightly guarded by him. I only knew her name was Song Chingching. Chingching Mumu. Even the names were similar reduplicated words. I snorted in disgust. The wind and waves were strong that day, with some rain. I wrapped my coat tighter around me, my subordinate carefully holding an umbrella for me. The woman, half suspended over the water, cursed incessantly. My expression was indifferent as I waited for Shin Yun-song to appear. How dare you treat me and the baby like this? Brother Yun-song will never forgive you. He will definitely kill you. If you're smart, you'll let me go immediately, then roll out of the Shin residence and stop Brother Yun-song. A person I could crush with one hand, I couldn't be bothered to deal with. Seeing the man rushing over with an umbrella, I took out the prepared contract. But she suddenly cursed. Me and the baby are Brother Yun-song's forever home. You're just a hen that can't lay eggs. Even with the title of Madam Shin, you're just a pathetic creature. Shin Yun-song's expression changed slightly. He immediately furrowed his brow and looked at me. I threw the contract to the ground and said coldly, throw her in the water. Just don't let her die. The misty rain mixed with the girlesque cries. She looked like a helpless fawn, begging the man before me. Enough, Mumu. You were once a mother too. The pen in my hand stabbed into the man's neck. The blood from his neck seemed to flow right into my eyes. You know I was once a mother too. Looking at my almost expression, pain in the man's brow. He held my hand and pushed it deeper. Mumu, it's just a woman. It's not worth it. Let off some steam, then let her go. The man's sticky blood flowed all over my hand. His voice was as gentle as the day he coaxed me to eat the steamed bun. It was also a rainy day. Too Little hadn't eaten for over 10 days. Seeing I was about to starve to death, he fought desperately with a wild dog for half a steamed bun. The bun was still stained with blood from his severed finger. I cried and wouldn't eat. He patiently broke it into small pieces and coaxed me to swallow, even though he had been hungry longer than me. My hand ultimately trembled. The pen slipped from my palm. The knife wound on my abdomen, sustained saving him, throbbed with pain. Before, he used his life to save me. Now, he used his life to force my compromise. I was utterly exhausted. I waved my hand. Let her go. The girl, soaking wet, was rescued. Crying and wailing, she grabbed his chest and pounded on him relentlessly. Brother Yun-song, the baby is gone. Avenge me and the baby. I want to kill that vicious woman. I want to kill her. Shin Yun-song, eyes red, held her in his arms and gently soothed her. It's okay, it's gone. You're still a child yourself. It was too early to be a mother. I looked at the incredulous girl and sneered at her naivety. After over a decade in the bloody storm, maintaining the position of Madam Shin never relied on children. Sheely fainted. Shin Yun-song hurriedly left with her in his arms. The contract was trampled under his leather shoes. Still not signed. But as the anniversary of my child's death approached, I didn't want to cause trouble during this time. Yet Song Chingching sent a file first. You harmed one of my children, so what? Brother Yun-song will only dote on me doubly. And you'll never have another child. Something fell out of the file. It was the longevity lock I had made with my own hands for the miscarried child. It was clearly placed by Shin Yun-song before the fate-renewing lamp in the temple where we prayed. How did it end up in Song Chingching's hands? I hurriedly took my men to the hospital. The door was left ajar. Clutching the child's longevity lock, I stood silently at the door. Inside, the woman was clutching Shin Yun-song's collar and crying, "Brother Yun-song, why won't you avenge me? Killing her is just a word for you. Why won't you do it? Kill her. Go kill her, ah." Shin Yun-song let her hit and vent, as if he couldn't feel the pain. She finally cried herself hoarse. "Brother Yun-song, that was our child, the one we'd for 3 years. 3 years?" My heart skipped a heavy beat. That was the exact date the child was lost. Shin Yun-song knelt on her hospital bed, constantly her trembling body, kissing her forehead densely and softly. "Ching-ching, you will have one. You will have one in the future." The light fell on them, just as he once comforted me after my miscarriage, and careful. "Tomorrow is the child's. I will take you to pray before the fate-renewing lamp. You will conceive eventually." Smack. The child's longevity lock fell to the floor. 3 years ago, to save Shin Yun-song, who was ambushed by our rival Master Qin, I was heavily pregnant and led his remaining men to fight a bloody path to safety. He lived. The child was gone. A 7-month fetus, miscarried alive. When it was delivered, it was a boy. Still crying. Seeing my look, he knelt on every mountain peak. In the temple where he prayed for me, he lit the fate-renewing lamp. A strand of hair from each parent the wick. Saying that chanting sutras and praying at 6 o'clock every day would give the child a chance to be reborn to us. I recited for 3 years, yet he had long since taken another woman to pray for a child under the very lamp meant to renew fate with my child. The sound attracted Shin Yun-song's attention. A fruit knife from the table flew past my eye and embedded itself in the door. Shin Yun-song grabbed my shoulders, his voice trembling. "Mumu, did I hurt you just now?" I didn't speak. I raised my hand, pulled out the knife, and plunged it deep into his brow bone, just 1 finger's width from his eye, where an ugly scar already sat. It was from when he was 18, begging for medicine for me, and the powerful men wanted to watch him fight wild beasts. He nearly lost his eye, yet he still smiled. Because I was saved. I wouldn't die. I cried like I had lost my parents, savagely bit Master Qin's finger, and was kicked away by him. Blood flowed down from Shin Yun-song's eyes, obscuring the expression in them. His hand still instinctively protected my back. I couldn't control myself, my eyes reddened, but my hand holding the knife was very steady. "Shin Yun-song, you should know how much I cared about that child. I dreamt every night, crying and begging to the gods and Buddhas. To anyone else, I have a clear conscience. But to that child alone. At the moment I chose to save Shin Yun-song, I abandoned him." Shin Yun-song didn't move, didn't explain. He let the wound on his brow bone be pried open and stabbed repeatedly, new wounds covering old, obliterating the traces of the past. But Song Ching-ching screamed and rushed over me, picked up the dagger from the floor, and aimed for my chest. I kicked her away, picked up the longevity lock from the floor, and pressed the gun to her forehead. The woman, who had just acted like she would face death unflinchingly, screamed and clutched the man's leg tightly. "Brother Yun-song, save me. This crazy woman wants to kill me." The man, who had shown no reaction before, frowned and looked at me darkly. "Mumu, I thought you had already vented your anger enough. Unwilling to divorce, yet wanting both women to serve one man. Does Master Shin think your wife is so easy to bully?" I smiled, cocking the gun with one hand. "Your husband flirts with another woman in front of my child's memorial tablet. Is stabbing you once supposed to settle it? There's no such logic in Hong Kong." Before I could pull the trigger, the entire hospital was surrounded tightly by his men. Rows of gun barrels aimed at me. The last time he mobilized such a force was against our mortal enemy. A siege of nearly 100 men made me seem weakened. Shin Yun-song casually wiped the blood from his face. His stained hand pressed down on my gun. His gaze fell on the longevity lock I held tightly, and he spoke in a deep voice. "If you don't like it, I won't let her go there again in the future. Mumu, know when to stop." I stared fixedly at the man before me, smiled, and pulled the trigger. Click. The woman on the ground was unharmed, but my gun suddenly fell from my hand. Shin Yun-song's brow bone twitched slightly. He frowned and stepped towards me. "Mumu. Madam." My subordinates instantly surrounded me, shielding me, cutting him off. My entire wrist was already dislocated and deformed. Cold sweat dripped from my forehead into my eyes, stinging with pain. The man who, year after year, knelt 3,000 steps for me, offered long-life lamps, only praying for my longevity. Now, for another woman, he could personally hurt me. He raised his hand, holding the now-fainted woman in his arms, looking down at the disheveled me. "Mumu, you shouldn't have pushed me," I said. "If you don't sign, you both die together." The pain in my wrist brought pain in my abdomen. I forced myself to stand up, aimed at Shin Yun-song, and pulled the trigger. A shrill female voice suddenly rang out. Song Ching-ching had taken the bullet for him. Her back was covered in blood. Ching-ching! A cry of alarm. Shin Yun-song's gaze shot towards her. The look of anguish in his eyes I had only seen on the day our child was lost. He suddenly looked at me, his eyes mixed with an anger I had never seen before. "You've gone too far. This is going too far. Those who dare harm Mumu must be repaid 100, 1,000, 10,000 times over. You taught me that." Expressionless, I set my wrist back in place, raised my gun and took aim. Smack! A vicious slap. My gun fell from my hand, clattering to the ground. My eardrums rang. Amidst the heavy crowd, I watched Shin Yun-song carefully soothe the woman in his arms, his voice gentle. He let her bite his shoulder until it bled freely, without even a frown, his eyes overflowing with heartache and pity. "It's okay, Ching-ching, it's okay. Big brother is here. Nothing will happen from now on." Too familiar. Countless nights after losing the child, when I woke screaming from nightmares, he would hold me like this under the moonlight and gently soothe me. Even though he himself was haggard beyond recognition, he would still patiently stroke my back, over and over. "It's okay, Mumu, it's okay." But now all I could hear were his words, tinged with coldness. "Divorce, I agree. I'll sign it and have it delivered to you tomorrow." With that, I was politely escorted out of the hospital by his men and tightly escorted back to the Shin residence entrance. I knew he was afraid I would harm her again. The strength I had forced myself to muster vanished. I collapsed weakly onto the bed, but swiftly and decisively summoned all my subordinates. The marriage could end, but accounts must also be settled. Shin Yun-song never broke his word to me. The agreement was delivered to my bedside early the next morning, along with an invitation card bearing a faint feminine perfume scent. Looking at the red and white documents beside me, I just wanted to laugh. So it turned out that what I had begged for in vain for so long could be obtained easily if that woman got hurt a little. Whether it was the wedding proclaimed to the world, or the hard-won divorce agreement. Perhaps afraid I wouldn't come, the address on the invitation was very clearly marked. Inside was also a handwritten letter full of smugness, the envelope sealed with the finest pigeon's blood wax. For this wedding, Shin Yun-song was truly generous to her. "I told you, with me around, you'd eventually out of the Shin residence." Poor thing, aren't you curious why, 3 years ago when he clearly loved you so much, he insisted on having a child with me? Listen to the recording. A little surprise for you. I'm rarely angered by such simplistic provocation. But the moment I heard the recording, I still clutched my chest tightly. The wedding was held at sea. 3 cruise ships were filled with Shin Yun-song's men, armed with the finest weapons, guarding the central ship. The most protection. I hadn't seen anything like it even on the day of my miscarriage. The moment I boarded the central ship with all my men, even though I had prepared myself, I couldn't help but force a bitter smile. Compared to our wedding, where we wore red cloth we'd found and bowed to heaven and earth in a leaky room, this was a grand ceremony befitting a princess. In the melodious music, Shin Yun-song bent down to lift her train for her, his eyes smiling like a victorious general returning home. The wedding dress had gone from tattered cloth to one hand tailored on her. The that cost nothing had become the on her finger. The grand wedding he had promised me back then, never fulfilled. Yet he had lifted another woman to be a pearl. "Welcome everyone here to witness." He stood on stage, effortlessly entertaining the guests, but the rising tone of his voice betrayed Shin Yun-song's joy and excitement. Bang! This wedding, Shin Yun-song had truly put his heart into it. Too bad I wasn't a good guest. I stood up from among the disguised guests and shot down the crystal chandelier. My men immediately shed their disguises and flooded in. On the three-decked cruise ship, there wasn't a single genuine congratulatory guest. They were all my people. Shin Yun-song was surprised for a moment, then shielded the woman behind him. What are you doing here? Brother Yun-song, she must be here to kill me. She must not want our wedding to succeed. The woman's faint sobs came from behind him. Shin Yun-song's expression darkened. The originally joyous occasion instantly became tense. I leaned back in my chair, smoke wreathing my face. Change it. They don't deserve such good music. Shin Yun-song frowned. The previous music was replaced by the sounds of a man and woman panting in passion. Brother, you insisted on having a child. Why did you make me get pregnant? I'm still young myself. Song Ching-ching exclaimed softly. The man in the recording chuckled lightly. But I just love the child Ching-ching will bear. A child born from someone as pure as you will surely be as cute as snow. Shin Yun-song frowned, his gaze darkening. The woman in the recording hummed shyly, persisting relentlessly. Liar. What you really want is her child. There's even the fate-renewing lamp you offered for her in the temple. Ching-ching, she's not worthy. The man sighed, a hint of disgust in his tone. She's dirty. I won't let her have another child. It's been 3 years. Have you heard any happy news from the Shin residents? The woman covered her mouth in shock, her voice. You mean that old woman was also messing around behind your back? Didn't she desperately save you when she was 7 months pregnant? The man was silent for a moment, then spoke with a cold laugh. I was at the end of my rope back then. Who knows how a woman 7 months pregnant managed to save me? And given Master Qin's nature, he wouldn't have let my woman come back. Song Ching-ching's shocked voice mixed with gasping breaths. Oh my God, so you mean when she was still pregnant, her body was used by hundreds of men? I sat in my chair, but Shin Yun-song couldn't stand still. Enough. Bang, 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 bang. The gunshots the man's disturbed state of mind. Shin Yun-song's eyes were murderous as he looked at the people I had brought. For a moment, I thought he would kill everyone who had heard this recording. Time was about right. I slowly stood up, wrapped my coat tighter, and calmly loaded my gun. Shin Yun-song, think about your last words. The man looked at me with bloodshot eyes. The only emotion I could read in his eyes was intense concern for me. But seeing my calm and indifferent demeanor, he finally smiled bitterly and spoke. Moo, I just didn't want you to suffer. The bullets were loaded. I thought my emotions had long been buried. But hearing his words, I still wanted to laugh. I slammed the gun butt onto the man's head. Finally destroying the nauseating expression on his face, I sneered. Shin Yun-song, weren't these words spoken by you yourself? I choked him, looking at his blood-stained face. Speak. Is someone framing you? Shin Yun-song offered almost no resistance. I questioned him sentence by sentence, and he retreated step by step, pushed by my force and the champagne tower behind him. The crashing sound couldn't drown out my accusations. Which of the brothers who died saving you didn't have families? They risked their lives to save you, hit by 3 bullets and still lunging forward to trade their lives for yours. Saying things like that, do you deserve to face every single one who fought for you? I fired a shot, hitting the hand he had used to slap me. But he seemed not to feel the pain, just looked up at me. Moo, I really just didn't want you to suffer anymore. Stepping on his still bleeding hand, my eyes reddened. If you didn't want me to suffer, you should have told me immediately when you fell in love with someone else. You know my character. From bleeding to standing among the elite, I had seen life and death, seen the dark depths of human nature, seen extravagant debauchery. There was almost nothing I cared about anymore except the long, unblemished bond between him and me. I would not allow anyone to it, not even him. Looking at the man whose face instantly paled, I felt nausea. I told you more than once, as long as you told me, I would let go immediately, only asking for a dignified end to our relationship. But you didn't. His mountain had long since for another, rotten and dirty, yet he wore the mask of pure loyalty, deceiving me for a full 3 years. Pain flashed in Shin Yun-song's eyes. He spoke tremblingly. After so many years together, just because of a woman, you want to cut all ties with me? I distastefully moved away the gun stained with his blood and took a new one handed over by my subordinate. In his increasingly pale face, I said calmly, Yesterday's divorce agreement. Today's grand wedding. Shin Yun-song, you have no right to accuse me. Shin Yun-song smiled and shook his head, the fragile expression on his face disappearing. It's different, Mumu. You and I are different. Your heart is so much harder than mine. As soon as the words fell, half of the people on the cruise ship turned their guns on me. Someone immediately rushed up with a medical kit, skillfully bandaging Shin Yun-song's wounds, afraid he would bleed another drop. After bandaging, Shin Yun-song touched the crying Song Qingqing, stood up, pushed her to be protected by his men, and drew his gun on me. My heart is slightly left of center. His aim was precise. One shot, and I would surely die. I smiled, unhurriedly took out the divorce agreement he had signed, and lit it on fire, watching Shin Yun-song through the flames. Never trust a man's words, watch his actions. He kept saying Song Qingqing was just a woman, but whether it was the luxurious, royal-like wedding or his actions for her, it all showed one thing. That woman was his bottom line. Mumu, take your people and leave now. I can let every single one of you go unharmed. I watched the paper burn to ashes and said calmly, Shin Yun-song, what's between us is no longer about personal feelings. My words scattered in the wind with the ashes. The things you and she did, if I don't take your heads to quell my anger, how can I command respect in the future? Let's do it. Suddenly, someone among the group protecting Song Qingqing pulled out a dagger and held it to her throat. Shin Yun-song instinctively pulled the trigger towards me, then froze as if struck by lightning. Blood was already starting to flow from Song Qingqing's neck. He slowly lowered his gun, his voice seemingly returning to the day he taught me how to shoot and kill, gentle, ethereal, indulgent, and doting. Mumu, she's pregnant with my child again. Maybe it's our baby from before. Do you have to be so cruel? I laughed until tears almost came. I raised my hand and threw the hospital report at his feet. The baby was long ago killed by your own hand. It's gone forever. Along with that report came a box, containing not only the shattered fate-renewing lamp but also burned sutras. Shin Yun-song picked up the report. It was about my latest miscarriage, the child 3 months old. Thanks to your manhandling of me yesterday, the baby didn't survive. I also destroyed everything in the temple. There won't be any more babies. The report was crushed in his hand for a moment, the light in his eyes shattered. That was Shin Yun-song and my first child after we had established ourselves, the child who died because of him. His persistence and guilt were no less than mine. I calmly looked down at him, my emotions flat. I'm not praying anymore. Let the baby be reborn in peace. A baby should be the crystallization of love. That thing between us is long gone. He looked at my calm, unruffled face and suddenly laughed dryly. Mumu, you are indeed harder than me. But you can't touch her today, not only because she's pregnant, but also because of her identity. He took out a token engraved with a golden eagle from his pocket. It was the insignia of another major in Hong Kong, Master Qin. Only this token was small and delicate, surrounded by precious gems and jade, clearly a special identity token. Shin Yun-song carefully gathered the things on the floor, stood up, and looked at me as if I were a child who didn't understand. Mumu, she is Master Qin's adopted daughter. I found it absurd and laughable, as if I were meeting the man before me for the first time. Master Qin wanted to kill you, and he also killed your child and mine. But you still fell in love with his adopted daughter, and even want to have a second family with her? Shin Yun-song fired a shot, knocking the dagger from his subordinate's hand. The bullet grazed Song Qingqing's face, leaving a bloody scratch. Casting aside all masks of tenderness, the man's eyes held only calmness and calculation. Mumu, Master Qin only has this one child. You should be sensible. Song Qingqing, whose face was almost cut by the bullet, no longer showed the fear of gunfire she had before. Like an innocent fledgling, she threw herself into the man's arms. Brother, I knew that with you. We have nothing to fear. I know my father was unkind to you before, but I've already cut ties with him. Once we have the baby, my father will have no choice but to hand over his territory to our child, the only heir. Shin Yun-song kissed away the blood on her face, his movements as gentle as when he kissed away the tears of pain during my miscarriage. I watched the couple cling to each other and understood. So it wasn't just love. It was also I couldn't provide. Seeing my stunned expression, Song Qingqing covered her lips and chuckled charmingly. Sister, I'm not the type who can't tolerate others. If you're willing to pay your respects morning and evening, I can keep a place for you in the Shin residence. If you don't want to be the lesser wife, you can be the main wife. But you'd have to take abortion medicine. I won't tolerate you having children. Shin Yunsong looked dotingly at Song Qingqing, letting her me with every word. As if certain that, knowing her identity, I would be afraid, would be sensible. I suppose he didn't know me very well. Bang! I shot straight through the golden token. Shin Yunsong immediately drew his gun and aimed at me, his brows tightly knitted. Moo, I thought you could understand plain words. Make another move and none of you will